They say blood runs thicker than water, but mine ran cold on the asphalt that rainy October night, mixing with the raindrops while my phone showed 17 missed calls to a father who couldn't be bothered to pick up. My name is Harper Reed, though I wasn't always Harper. I used to be Hannah, the eldest daughter who worked double shifts at Romano's Diner to help pay for my sister Chloe's designer nail appointments and my mother Tiffany's endless brunch dates with her church friends. I was the one who never complained when Dad's poker nights ran late and the grocery money mysteriously disappeared. I was the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who sacrificed her own dreams so everyone else could live theirs. That version of me died on Maple Street at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I had been driving home from my second job, exhausted but proud. I had finally saved enough money to make the last payment on my used Honda Civic. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The rain was coming down in sheets, and visibility was nearly zero when the drunk driver in the 18-wheeler came barreling through the red light. The impact sent my car spinning like a toy, metal screaming against metal, glass exploding around me like deadly confetti. When the car finally stopped moving, I was trapped. My left leg was pinned under the crumpled dashboard, blood streaming from a gash on my forehead, and every breath felt like broken glass in my lungs. But the physical pain was nothing compared to what came next. With shaking hands, I managed to reach my phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I called Dad first, like I always did when something went wrong. Like the dutiful daughter I had always been. "Dad," I whispered when he finally answered after the fifth ring. "I need help. I've been in an accident. I'm hurt really bad." There was a pause, and then his voice came through the phone, cold and irritated. "Hannah, what now? Do you have any idea what time it is? I'm supposed to take Chloe to get her nails done tonight. She's been looking forward to this all week." "Dad, please," I begged, tasting blood. "I think my leg is broken. There's so much blood. I need you to come." "Look, you're probably just being dramatic like always. Take a taxi to the hospital if it's really that serious. I can't disappoint Chloe. You know how important these things are to her." The line went dead. I stared at the black screen, rain pattering against the shattered windshield, and felt something inside me break that had nothing to do with bones or blood. A stranger, an elderly man named Mr. Peterson, was the one who pulled me from the wreckage. He and his wife stayed with me until the ambulance arrived, holding my hand and telling me everything would be okay. They were more of a family to me in those 20 minutes than mine had been in 24 years. 2 days later, I discharged myself from the hospital. No one had visited. No one had called to check on me. I took a taxi home with my leg in a cast and my head wrapped in bandages, using the last of my emergency savings to pay the fare. When I walked through the front door of the house I had helped pay for with my diner wages, I found them exactly where I expected them to be. Dad was sprawled on his recliner watching ESPN. Chloe was showing off her freshly manicured nails to Mom, who was photographing them for her Instagram story about family bonding time. "Oh, you're back," Mom said without looking up from her phone. "Could you clean yourself up before sitting anywhere? Those bandages are unsightly." Chloe glanced at me with undisguised disgust. "Ugh, you look like something that crawled out of a morgue. No wonder you can't get a boyfriend." Dad didn't even acknowledge my presence. That night, lying in my bed with my broken leg throbbing and my head pounding, I made a decision. Hannah, the people pleaser, the doormat, the one who sacrificed everything for scraps of attention, was dead. In her place, Harper would rise. And Harper would make them understand what it felt like to lose the things they couldn't live without. Over the following weeks, I began to see my family with new eyes. I watched as Dad spent hours researching poker strategies and bragging to his friends about his winning streaks while conveniently forgetting to mention the thousands of dollars he owed to various creditors. I observed Mom meticulously staging photos of our perfect family for social media while hiding credit card statements and loan documents in her jewelry box. I listened as Chloe made appointments at the most expensive nail salon in town, completely oblivious to the fact that her monthly manicures cost more than most families spent on groceries. They had built their lives on borrowed time and borrowed money, and somehow, I had been the one keeping their house of cards from falling. No more. My first target was Chloe. She lived for her weekly nail appointments at Lux Nails, where she was treated like royalty by the staff who depended on her generous tips. What she didn't know was that I had been quietly collecting screenshots of her social media posts, where she mocked the other customers and made racist comments about the salon workers. She thought she was being clever with her coded language and inside jokes with her equally vapid friends. I created an anonymous email account and sent a comprehensive compilation to the salon owner, along with a politely worded explanation of how these posts reflected on their business. I included timestamps, screenshots, and even audio recordings I had made of Chloe's phone conversations where she referred to the nail technicians by ethnic slurs. The next Tuesday, Chloe strutted into Lux Nails expecting her usual red carpet treatment. Instead, she was met by a stone-faced manager who handed her a printed copy of her social media history and asked her to leave immediately. When she tried to argue, several other customers recognized her from the screenshots that had been circulating in the local Facebook groups. Someone started recording as Chloe had a complete meltdown, screaming about her rights and demanding to speak to the owner. The video went viral locally within hours. Chloe became known as Nail Salon Karen, and suddenly no salon in the city would take her appointments. She came home that day with broken nails and a bruised ego, wailing to Dad about the unfair treatment she had received. "Figure it out yourself," Dad told her, not bothering to look away from his poker tutorial videos. "I've got more important things to worry about." Dad was next. His poker nights at Murphy's Bar were his pride and joy, the place where he felt like a big shot among his group of middle-aged wannabes. What they didn't know was that Dad had been using marked cards and tiny mirrors to cheat for months. I knew because I had installed a small recording device in his car after borrowing it to run errands. I spent weeks collecting evidence of his cheating methods, his mounting gambling debts, and most damning of all, recorded conversations where he bragged about fooling his stupid friends and laughed about taking their money. I also discovered that he owed nearly $30,000 to various bookies and loan sharks, money he had borrowed against the house without telling Mom. I compiled everything into a neat package and sent it anonymously to each member of his poker group, along with copies of his outstanding debt notices. I even included a helpful timeline showing how his lucky winning streaks coincided perfectly with his acquisition of new cheating devices. The confrontation happened the following Saturday night. Dad came home at 2 a.m. with a black eye and a split lip, ranting about being set up and betrayed. His poker buddies had not only kicked him out of the group but had also demanded he pay back everything he had won through cheating. When word spread about his debts, his reputation in the neighborhood was destroyed overnight. "How could they do this to me?" he raged, throwing empty beer bottles at the wall. "I gave them friendship, loyalty." Mom looked at him with disgust. "Friendship? You mean you gave them lies and theft?" But Mom wasn't innocent either, and her turn was coming. Tiffany Reed lived for her Sunday brunches with the ladies from Street Mary's Episcopal Church. These weren't just meals. They were performances where she showcased her blessed family life and her generous spirit. What the church ladies didn't know was that Mom had been systematically stealing from the church charity fund. She helped manage, using the money to maintain her facade of wealth. I had discovered her embezzlement months earlier when I helped her organize her home office. She kept meticulous records, apparently believing that if she documented everything, it would somehow make it legal. She had taken over $8,000 meant for homeless families and used it to pay for her designer handbags, expensive brunches, and the professional photos she had taken for her social media accounts. I made copies of everything: bank statements, forged receipts, emails where she discussed her spending with online shopping communities, and most damning of all, a voice memo she had recorded for herself where she detailed exactly how she had been moving money around to avoid detection, but simply exposing her wouldn't be enough. I wanted her to experience the humiliation in front of the people whose opinions she valued most. I hacked into her social media accounts and scheduled a post to go live during her Sunday brunch with the church ladies. The post contained every piece of evidence I had gathered, formatted as a confession written in her voice. It detailed her theft, her lies about our family's financial situation, and included several unflattering comments she had made about her fellow church members in private. The post went live at exactly 12:30 p.m., right as she was holding court at their usual table at the Rosewood Cafe. I watched from across the street as the notification alerts started pinging on everyone's phones. I saw the exact moment they began reading, their faces shifting from polite interest to shock to disgust. Mom tried desperately to explain, to claim she had been hacked, but the evidence was too detailed, too personal. Only she could have known some of the information in the post. The church ladies left her sitting alone at the table, and by evening, she had been suspended from all her volunteer positions pending a formal investigation. 3 weeks after my systematic dismantling of their lives began, my family finally came to me. Not to apologize, not to acknowledge what they had put me through, but to demand that I fix the messes they believed had randomly befallen them. Dad cornered me first as I was reading in the living room. "Harper, you've always been good with people. I need you to talk to the guys at Murphy's, convince them I was set up. You know how persuasive you can be." Before I could respond, Mom rushed in, her eyes red from crying. "Harper, honey, you have to help me. Someone hacked my accounts and made it look like I stole from the church. You're smart with computers. You can prove I was framed, right?" Chloe pushed past both of them, her voice shrill with panic. "I don't care about their problems. Harper, you need to call every nail salon in the city and explain that those posts weren't really me. Tell them my account was hacked or something. I can't live like this." They stood there, all talking at once, all making demands, all expecting me to wave a magic wand and restore their comfortable lives. Not one of them had asked how I was feeling. Not one had noticed that my limp was gone, but the scar on my forehead remained. Not one had acknowledged that they had left me bleeding on the side of the road. I stood up slowly, walked to my room, and returned with a leather-bound notebook. I set it on the coffee table in front of them and opened it to the first page. "This?" I said, my voice steady and calm. is a record of every cruel thing you've said to me, every time you've dismissed my pain, every moment you've treated me like I was worthless. I flipped through pages filled with my careful handwriting. Dates, times, exact quotes. 3 years' worth of emotional abuse meticulously documented. The 15th of October, 10:42 p.m. Chloe Reed to Harper Reed. You're such a pathetic loser. No wonder Mom and Dad love me more. I read aloud. The 8th of March, 2:15 p.m. Robert Reed to Harper Reed. Stop being so dramatic. Your problems aren't real problems. Their faces grew pale as I continued reading. Page after page of their own words reflected back at them. And here? I said, turning to the most recent entries. The 23rd of October, 11:52 p.m. Robert Reed to Harper Reed, while she was trapped in a car accident. Take a taxi to the hospital if it's really that serious. I can't disappoint Chloe. The room fell silent except for the sound of pages turning. You want to know who destroyed your lives? I asked, closing the notebook and looking each of them in the eye. Look in a mirror. Every single consequence you're facing is the direct result of your own actions. The cheating, the stealing, the cruelty, the selfishness. I didn't create these problems. I simply made sure other people could see who you really are. Dad's face turned red. You did this? You ruined everything? I didn't ruin anything, I replied. I just stopped protecting you from yourselves. Mom started crying. But we're family. Family forgives. Family also shows up when you're dying on the side of the road, I said. Family doesn't steal charity money or cheat at cards or make racist comments about service workers. You're not my family. You're just people I happen to share DNA with. Chloe lunged toward me, but I stepped back. Fix this, she screamed. You have to fix this. No, I said simply. I don't. I walked toward the door, picking up the suitcase I had packed that morning. I had been planning this moment for weeks, and Jake Miller was waiting outside in his truck to help me move to my new apartment across town. Where are you going? Mom asked desperately. Somewhere you can't find me, I answered. Somewhere I don't have to listen to you beg for help you don't deserve. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. They were huddled together on the couch, looking smaller and more pathetic than I had ever seen them. For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Here's the thing about consequences, I said. They don't care about your excuses. They don't care about your tears. They just are. And for the first time in your lives, you're going to have to face them alone. I walked out into the cool autumn air, where Jake was waiting with a smile and open arms. As we drove away, I could hear them calling my name through the open windows, but their voices grew fainter with each block until they disappeared entirely. 6 months later, I had built a life that was entirely my own. I finished my degree in business administration, started working at a marketing firm that valued my strategic thinking, and moved into a small but beautiful apartment that overlooked the river. I made friends who appreciated my loyalty because I chose to give it, not because they demanded it. Jake and I took things slowly, building a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine affection, rather than obligation and guilt. He had seen me at my lowest point and had chosen to stand by me, not because he pitied me, but because he believed I deserved better. Sometimes I ran into people who knew my family, and they would ask about them with poorly concealed curiosity. I learned that Dad had lost the house to foreclosure after his gambling debts became unmanageable. Mom had taken a job at a grocery store and was slowly paying back the church, though she would never be welcome in their community again. Chloe had moved in with a boyfriend whose mother owned a nail salon, though word was she wasn't happy about having to actually work for her manicures. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, but I felt no guilt either. They had made their choices long before I stopped enabling them. I had simply removed myself from the equation and let the natural consequences of their actions take their course. The scar on my forehead faded over time, but I never tried to hide it completely. It served as a reminder of the night I stopped being a victim and started being the author of my own story. Sometimes people asked about it, and I would smile and say it was from an accident that changed my life for the better, because in the end, that's exactly what it was. The accident hadn't just broken my leg and cut my forehead. It had shattered the illusion that I owed my life to people who saw me as nothing more than a convenience. It had given me permission to walk away from a family that had never truly been a family at all. I learned that love isn't something you beg for or earn through sacrifice. Real love is freely given and freely received. It doesn't come with conditions or require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Real love shows up when you're bleeding on the side of the road, and it stays until help arrives. My name is Harper Reed, and I am no one's victim anymore. I am no one's convenient solution. I am no one's emotional punching bag or financial safety net. I am simply and completely myself, and for the first time in my life, that is enough.